Okay, well, first of all, I want to introduce, before I start introducing you, Luce, I want to point out that you are all fire. And your background with your t-shirt and my background with my t-shirt, it's like fire. And I don't really know how to explain this color and what it represents, but you are a perfect representation of how I perceive you as well and perceived you a couple times. I've met you and crossed paths, which is this like inner fire. And it's not this fire that comes out and almost like forges through. It's rather than the inner fire that it's very confident and it shows into your eyes. And it's almost like demands the respect.
Mhm.
And I will go a step further and say, when a woman embodies such a fire inside of her and knows how to control it, it requires the bow down. And I'm not saying this as a sugarcoating. I'm actually really like, I almost had to think and take a deep breath before I approached you because there's so much inner respect into the power inside of you that you embody, but just being you. So I want to just welcome you. And I want to
Mhm.
thank you for desiring to come and join and co-create together with me. This space is wonderful and it's going to be just as rich as you are yourself coming and showing up. So welcome, 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 Luce.
Thank you. Wow, what a incredible introduction. Thank you so from the heart, and I really receive it. Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Um, I'm feeling that I'm in the middle of another wave of transformation.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how does that feel?
At the moment, it feels gentle, like receiving gentle waves of an ocean that has been in a lot more movement and energy and chaos, but like as if like that storm had abated and now I'm receiving more like the gentle after waves of that.
Wow. And are you talking about the internalized process? Are you talking about almost like you're feeling the field around you having these waves and chaos to calm, chaos to calm?
Really both, honestly, because I was just at a incredible event called the Toronto Tantra Festival,
Hmm.
which is a 4-day festival that always happens at the beginning of September. And it's been my third year going there, my second year as a facilitator. And this year was really special because it didn't go at all as planned.
Wow. So were you surprised by it?
Totally.
Pleasantly?
Um, not at first, not at first, but then when I was able to not resist and just welcome it, it was completely transformational. And so that was that
Hmm.
recent sort of like big wave of transformation that I'm still sort of in right now.
Simmering in it.
Yes.
And do you find, so how do you nurture this simmer?
Yeah. Um, well, I have the immense luck of being my own boss and having my business. And I had kind of planned for it because after these festivals, like it's always so much energy just moves through us on an individual level, but also on a collective level. And the previous years, like I would slide right back into work and it was like really hard on my nervous system. And this year, I didn't take much on Tuesday, Wednesday, and even today, Thursday. I didn't book any coaching sessions. I didn't book anything that was like very structured. And and my son is with his father, and so I woke up at whatever time my body felt like waking up. I ate really well, home cooked food. I took a lot of just pauses. And
Hmm.
also one of the things that so I can't walk at the moment. I'm on crutches.
Hmm?
Yeah, and so I had to rest. I had to stay home.
I mean, did this happen on the Tantra or post Tantra retreat?
It happened on the first day of the Tantra Festival.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're almost forced to stay calm and take it very slow.
Yes.
And do you, when nothing in life makes sense logically and rationally, the mind doesn't stop to ask and seek the understanding of why, what, where, how come, why me. It's will
Mm-hmm.
always have a list of questions. So how do you calm your mind in the midst of the almost like inner push for you to pause? It sounds like you're
Mm-hmm.
in the midst of, hold on, slow down, stay. Just hold on for a second. How do you how do you recognize this and how do you understand this? I'm curious.
Mm. So maybe I'll go a little bit into the story to answer your question, the story of what happened to my knee at the festival. So it's a very intense time. I was bringing a whole team of, red tent priestesses, and there was a lot of logistics. We had many common ceremonies and rituals, and I had my own workshop. Plus, because we're part of a larger team, we also have like other responsibilities for other parts of this event. And the last 3 weeks have just been like go, 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 like funnel to really get to this point where we were leaving for the festival. And then we got there and we had to install like a physical tent and decorate it. And then we had another ritual space that we had to do altars. We brought all our sacred objects, like it was a big deal. And the reality is that I hadn't really been listening to my body in the last like probably month, I would say, because I'm usually pretty good at listening to my body and the rhythms and pausing and resting and things like that. But I haven't been able to do that in the last month, or rather, I've chosen not to do that and just be like go go go.
Mm.
And so the week before the festival, my left knee, I started feeling this little weird discomfort, and I was like, oh, after the festival, I'll do this, this, and that. And then I get there, and progressively it starts getting worse and I start limping a little bit and I start feeling actual pain. And then just before my solo workshop, my knee just totally gave way.
Wow.
Totally. It was so painful that I could not put any weight on it. And as this was happening, I couldn't, like the Bluetooth on my phone wouldn't plug to the sound system. And then when I started the workshop, the songs wouldn't play in the right order. And all these things started piling up, piling up, piling up. And I still gave the workshop, but I was in pain. I was in panic. And inside, I just felt like that I was gutted. I was really
Mm.
gutted. And after the workshop, I barely made it to the place where we were having dinner. And then I just collapsed
Mm.
and I cried and cried and cried and I couldn't stop. And there was all this grief that was coming up. And there was grief for myself for what was happening, but there was also, it felt like there was this collective grief that was
Mm.
also coming through me. And this often happens to me in ritual space. I become kind of like a portal for collective healing. This has happened many times in the last 3, 4 years. And
Mm.
so, as much as it was about my knee, it was also about probably like a collective outpouring of grief that needed to be purged. And it just
Mm.
purged through me, through my body. And to go back to the workshop, the thing that in hindsight is always clear, right? What I've came to see, and in conversations also with other facilitators, is that I wasn't really attuned to the present moment. The present
Mm.
moment probably called for something else, like maybe just to sit down in circle and have a conversation on the topic that I had prepared this workshop on, which is the archetype of matriarch. So very
Mm.
powerful topic. But my ego and my mind were like, no, you spent like 15 hours designing this workshop, choosing the music, all these things. You have to do it this way. And it was really just a split second. And I was really like lost in this ego mind imperative that was I only knew what the original design was. I could have said, hey, let's have a chat about this archetype because this and that and the importance of it. but I didn't listen to the moment. And I just like went ahead in this linear, logical, rational way that didn't work at all,
Mm.
at all, at all. And it's so
Wow.
interesting that it's the left side, which is the feminine side of the body, that collapsed.
Wow. So how long it took you to calm the mind down and realize that this happened for you, not to you?
Probably, probably 12 hours. So probably the night and then part of the morning. And then I started really harvesting the medicine of the situation, of the experience. And a
Mm.
part of it was that the whole community just came together organically to support me and care for me and love on me. Like they would bringing me meals, people would come and visit me, bring me, like healing products. I received like 3 or 4 Reiki healing sessions, and people were spontaneously just like really taking care of me.
Hmm.
And it was such a profoundly healing moment that went on for days because
Mm.
it was only the beginning of the festival. So it went on for 3 days. And
Wow.
so I was in this position where I was completely helpless. I couldn't move. I was dependent, and I received so much love and appreciation and honoring and co-regulation from these amazing magical humans. And it was just like the most profound medicine I think I've ever received.
Mhm. I love your story. Now we can talk about it because what's interesting, it makes you humble.
Yeah.
It brings you down on your knees, metaphorically and literally.
Yes.
And I love when these things happen, like almost in shock and surprise, but it surprises the mind. It doesn't surprise the heart. It doesn't surprise that inner quality of humanness that holds both sides of it. And it almost shows how far ahead we went with our mind.
Yes.
And, it reminded me, I wrote this morning, I wake up and I just write these inspirative thoughts and poems that I call them. And, like these qualities of us that show up often don't show up led by mind, like
Mm.
spontaneity, like humility, but humility for humanness, for being human. This
Yes.
acceptance that we teach in Vita, this clarity, this truth, these deep qualities of us really show up very slow and very subtle, and often big, giant realizations, as big, giant realizations after we push with our mind so far, like because we have to go. And I would love to talk about it with you because it almost sounds like the mind wants to rush in the world around us that it's now speeding up really fast, and it's speeding up even more. And the mind wants to catch up with everything that is happening and has this responsibility and obligation, and it must do and must belong to the system, the mind. And we don't catch very fast that we have to slow down, especially as women, especially as nurturers, especially as gifted to nurture and to slow down in order to blossom and open up to safety. How do you find this now in your world? Especially, it almost sounds like you were corrected back, pulled back to rethink the strategy, which was also divinely guided. First question is like, does it bring you the qualities of grace inside your heart days later?
Absolutely. I was actually writing about it today because
Yeah.
it took me some days to really just integrate or start integrating, because I think it's going to go on for a while, but at least
Mm.
start integrating the first few layers of this. And what I realized, especially with what's going on in the world, right now, the shootings and everything, the contrast between this healing that happens in healthy community
Mm.
versus what happens in polarized communities that feed and fuel with anger and division and this idea that certain human beings are more deserving or have more intrinsic value than others, which drives this like never ending spiral of, this vortex of shame and guilt and anger and all these things that are so toxic for our nervous systems versus what happens in these community pods where people just freely care for each other and prefer to see the best in the person and prefer to turn towards each other and try to attune. And if there's repair, try to repair rather than, other and oppress and make other people wrong. So, all
Mm.
that to say that, and all these are words, all these are
Yeah.
concepts until we feel it and it's embodied. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's what I received is this embodied feeling of being, of belonging to a community, of truly, truly being loved and belonging to a community. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's a
that's
completely different
grace.
language. Grace, yeah. And it's a
Yeah.
completely different language. And it almost the language that we recognize. We don't have to learn it. It's actually recognizable and becomes familiar to our awareness. It shows up. It's in a surprise. But after you kneel on your knees through humility to say, oh my God, there's a lessons in it, but there's also a list of things that, wow, I'm valuable. I also have the value. I also desire this value in me. I also desire to show up to the world with these values. And he almost resets it in such a concrete way. And I would very much agree with what you're saying now. The more the external world is forcing upon us to be the one way and force and forge towards almost like dogmatic way of thinking, the more we're invited. We're almost course corrected. Whether we like it or not, we want it
Yes.
or not, whether we plan it or not, we're course corrected to come back inside and find those human qualities inside of us. And I wonder, here's where I kind of go a step ahead of the time. Do you think it's because of the age that we're entering into, the epoch of our civilization? A little bit
I,
advanced, but
I think so. Yeah. I think that this crumbling of this power structures that are in place right now, um, this has been in preparation for thousands of years. This split from our humanness, from our tender, tender animal bodies, we're mammals, right? Like at the root of it. And then also we're humans and we have this intelligence and we have this connection to the divine. But this split from the mother, from the body, from immanence, from each other, from love, from sexuality, from what is organic and natural to us, from, the messiness of menstruation, from our pleasure and our bodies that are can be broken but can also be transcendent. All of this splitting apart, divine from body, love from eros, light from dark, the whore archetype from the Madonna archetype, all this splitting that started so, so long ago. I think it's splitting the world and cracking the world open. Finally, it's really disruptive. It's really uncomfortable. And
mhm,
also it's it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable because it started with a split.
mm,
And so of course it's going to cause a much bigger split and splintering and
mm,
just like collapse. So, of course, this is happening. And so, yeah, we're entering these turbulent times where we must go inside of ourselves to find our rootedness, our divinity, our spark, our creativity, our resilience, our courage, and all of these qualities that come from inside of us as humans. And we also have to open our eyes and look at we can't do this alone. And who is my community? What kind of community do I want to co-create? Do I want to be a part of? And this is so, so important. And this is one of the paths that I've been on in the last 3 or 4 years, coming from, you know, unfortunately, a family setting that was not conducive to attunement and nurturing in the way that I needed as a child. And so I started my life really feeling like I didn't belong. There was something wrong with me. I needed to be a certain way to be loved, to merit, attention, things like that. And it's really through this human experience and not in spite of it, and not that it needs to be, you're talking about course correction. I think that the course correction comes from and probably stems from these childhood developmental traumas that we've had, or relational traumas in adulthood. Those are the ones that when we allow them, when we allow ourselves to meet with these parts of ourselves, that is the course correction,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
I love it. And I keep bringing up this, kept coming up in my mind. So knowing thyself is actually really hard, as if you're dropping inside and you're getting to understand your own self, which is such a hard school to do. And that comes with understanding all sides of you, even the agony, even the ecstasy, even the pleasure and the joy and the pain and the terror. And to
Yes.
do this alone in today's world, full of terror that we reject, repress, and we numb out, is very terrifying. And this whole podcast, Luce, actually was created for the sake of offering, not even offering, but rather than having an example that we have to do this together,
Mm,
that having a safety to express without being pointed out or judged or forced to
mm,
change is actually the step towards that liberation. And when I speak of liberation, it's almost like release and release and release, and whatever that we now in this phase of transition, collective transition, we are meant to clear, clean, liberate, release, and move forward with the different qualities. I have this innate fear inside of my soul compass, and I no longer talk about my energetic heart or my ego and personality and selves and all these layers. I'm talking compass that comes with us, which is the humanness.
mm,
And to me, it's such a deeply rooted need to survive as humanity. And I can recognize it because I am trying to find these qualities in the other, but I can
mm,
only enter them if you're open. Like you said, if you know how to handle yourself, hold yourself. And if you're willing with me to hold hands and we can crack open and try to explore, try to learn this different language of us. I can learn from you so much if I meet you at that level. And I'm not really only talking underworlds. I'm not talking deep trauma work that we went through school. I'm not talking experiential life work and all the trauma that we went in this lifetime. I'm talking energetic attunement to the core of who we are and why we're here, which is to be together, to touch on a very deep level, the hearts, the levels of soul and spirit, the energy to exchange so we can continue. And thank you for bringing this up. It's very deep and very, very crucial. We do this together. I absolutely agree.
yeah. It's interesting because when I was listening to you, the piece about releasing and all these layers, um, this is exactly the work that we need to do when we go through the menopause initiation.
Mm. Well, let's talk about it. Ha! Plah! That's just added layer on everything that is already happening. Oh my
Yes.
God. And necessary, needed for every woman that will go through, whether you like it or not. So let's dive about it.
Let's go.
So how is this? What does this mean to you, actually? Why are you so passionate about it? What brings this for you? I almost can sense a higher purpose for you, that you're bringing this topic actively to the world to normalize it and actually not break all taboos and all set structures related to it, but rather than open it up from the angle of your own experience and
Mhm.
your own positive way of thinking, different angle, different data point that can be used to change the whole perspective about changing the menopause and changing life through it.
Absolutely. And it's really, as you intuited, it's really through my intense experience of it, which was a true initiation. And I called it an initiation even before I knew what an initiation truly was.
Mm.
I just like viscerally knew that I had gone through the ring of fire, that I had walked into what I later came to identify as the arc of feminine transformation, which is very different from the hero's journey that we hear a lot about, which is very masculine. But
Mm.
for feminine beings, it's really an arc where you go down into the darkness and you die. There's a death, and then there's a rebirth, and then you ascend. And on
Mm.
the other side, you are completely different. You've been transformed, alchemized, and the blueprint for this is the myth of Inanna. And I don't know if you're familiar with goddess Inanna.
Mm-mm.
No? Um,
Tell us.
so I discovered her just as I was sort of ascending. I was in the ascent of my menopause initiation, and I was in Vita actually. No, it was before Vita. Sorry, it was before
Mm.
Vita, and I discovered her by fluke, but it's never really fluke. Um,
Yeah.
Through this incredible author called Carly Mountain and her book, which is all about really understanding this arc of the feminine initiation. I just like devoured that book, and everything that she was talking about, I felt it in my cells, in every organ of my body, in my heart, in everywhere. And the way that it works is that goddess Inanna, I'm going to make it super short, but goddess Inanna is called to the underworld to visit her sister who is pregnant. Her name is Ereshkigal. And she has to go to the underworld. And she passes 7 gates. And at each gate, she needs to give up something that is a representation of her power because she is the queen of heaven and earth. And so she
Mm.
has these gems and she has this robe and she has all these markings of her rank and her power. And at each gate, she must relinquish one of these artifacts. And by the
Mm.
time that she gets down to the underworld, she is naked, trembling, and has no more strength left. And she sees her sister, and her sister looks at her and with her piercing eyes kills her. So she dies. And then
Mm.
she's put on the meat hook for 3 days. And after 3 days, these beings that are her father's servants come to find her, and they convince Ereshkigal to give them the body of Inanna. And through their care and their love, she resuscitates. So this is the
Mm.
very first story, even before Jesus Christ, of resuscitation is
Wow.
the Inanna myth. And through this new life, she then ascends, goes through the gates again, and then reintegrates, but as a completely different sovereign, a completely different person because of the experience that she's gone through. And so I think that you and I and every single person with a vulva in this world can really associate many things that we've gone through, whether it's a death portal with grief associated, whether it's entering motherhood for those of us who have children, whether it's a deep breakup or anything that sends us into this underworld. I think that all of us can really relate to this arc, right?
Hmm.
And for me, it was the first time that it went so deep, so fast, and in a way that really scared me. And I really got to a point, at the darkest point, where there was this night where I really thought I was going to die. I was convinced I was going to die.
Mm.
This is after 8 or 9 months of severe symptoms of PTSD, of just like horrible situations that had happened to me. And it's also at that point where I think a part of me actually did die, that I also made a decision that this was not the end, and that actually there was probably more, but I really needed for things to be different. And that was
Mm.
probably the beginning of my slow ascent into something else. And it completely transformed me. I
Mm.
went from being somebody who worked in organizations, who was very, like rational. I spent 10 years in research in universities, to being like, actually, no, I want to learn all about the body, all about the nervous system, all about hormones, what is happening to my body, to all women's bodies. And then eventually into somatic work, and then the work with Vita, and then really finding that actually it's through the portal of the soma that we can access the unconscious, that we can heal, that we can bring up so many treasures, and that we can heal with pleasure. It doesn't have to be through difficult, hard things. It can also be pleasurable, it can be beautiful and magical. And so
Mm.
it was really through this portal of the initiation of menopause that I discovered all these things. And I realized that I wasn't the only one that was going through these kinds of transformations. There were so many women. And the sad reality is that many women were getting stuck in the
Mm.
pain of the initiation and getting stuck in that bottom of this arc. And I decided, if I can help it, if I can help even one woman not be stuck in this and help her ascend, then that's what I want to be doing for the rest of my life.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I have so many questions related to this. What is the age that you're referring when this happens to you? What's your
So I
age?
was 50, between 50 and 51.
Oh, so this actually happened later to you. Usually, I think the premenopause and menopause starts from 40s all the way up to 50, 55, right?
So in North America and Europe, the median age for menopause is 51. So I was right on track.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And we only know by examples of our mothers and sisters of how bad it can be or how it's nothing. And you're almost like sitting there hoping it's not going to hit you really hard, but something internally happens. And when you started talking about this death, you're not only talking about the rebirth and deaths of something inside your body, but are you also referring to your spiritual death, energetic death?
I think it was an identity death.
Identity.
Yeah,
And what is that? How is that? First, how is that felt in your soma?
absolutely.
How?
Absolutely. I really truly believe that the menopause symptoms, whether it's the hot flashes, the weight gain, the mood changes, the anxiety, all of these manifestations going through the body are really us being in the cocoon, the butterfly cocoon, and really feeling ourselves getting all mushed up and ready for the alchemy of transformation.
Mhm.
And so what happens to many women is that we start feeling that and we other our body. And either we numb, or we try to escape our body, or we make our body bad, or there's probably like two or three other ways that we can push this away. But actually, these are the manifestations and the signs of the transformation that's actually happening.
And what you're saying is that once we start feeling our body and all these waves, not only flushes, but you're talking about the swooshing of sudden events, surprising, shocking things,
Yeah.
thoughts, temperatures, coldness, shivering, repulsion of something, right? So we really don't know. I guess I just assume that we don't really know what is happening, but rather than our reaction to what is happening is what's where you are pointing out is that if we change the way we react to what is happening, it's actually more invitation to heal and transform it smoothly rather than having it toss you all over the place and lead you and guide you in the sidetracked or a different direction other than what you're supposed to do. So how did you experience these?
Hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting that you would name, that's an invitation. I don't think it can ever be completely smooth. There's maybe 20 to 25% of women, statistically speaking, that will have very few symptoms, if any. So that's
Hmm.
not a lot. That's like a large minority of women who they'll just sail through it. The 75% remaining will have between moderate and very severe symptoms. And so for that percentage of the population, I don't think it can be completely smooth because that's not the point. The
Hmm.
point of transformation is you will feel it. And it's not going to be always pleasant. So it's not about eliminating the discomfort, it's about meeting it. And that's where
Hmm.
Tantra is so useful as a philosophy and as the underpinnings, of how we can approach things when we are able to gauge, oh, okay, so I'm having this anger, I'm having these hot flushes, I'm having, my hair is falling out. I see that my hair is becoming gray, my skin is changing. How do I actually meet that? So it's not about, oh, I'm going to meet it. It's going to be beautiful and joyful. No, maybe you're going to cry and you're going to cry for days. So, but it's about actually being in the experience and having
Hmm.
the tools to move through these experiences in a way that is not necessarily going to be happy, happy, joyful, but is going to be generative and is going to bring you closer to this transformation that is going to be the underpinnings and the structure of your future self and your, I like to talk about leadership because we have this innate capacity as women to be shapeshifters, right? Like we menstruate, our bodies change with childbirth. We actually give birth to beings. We have this possibility, at least. And we shapeshift inside as well, like our psyches completely shift with menopause. We are literally not the same beings before and after. Like we talk about this period of 12 months of no menstruation, which marks menopause, that day that we are officially in postmenopausal. But we don't talk about how our psyche, our emotions, our energy, everything changes.
Hmm. And I'm curious, can you touch, because you are talking about the change in multi-layered parts of ourselves, which is, we all think that's one. It's actually not. There we have many layers, and many of them have their own almost consciousness and almost on need, on speed, on nurturing ways. And we need to kind of figure out how to support many of them all at once. So
Yeah.
can you touch base on how did you, okay, so let we could just kind of have a scenario. There's this wave of change that is happening, and it hits you as a shock, and it hits you on a physiological level. It hits you on an emotional level.
Yeah.
It dysregulates your hormonal system completely. You can go blind and deaf at the same time, not knowing who you are. Identity shift changes, like you almost gasp for air to survive this shockwave. How do you collect yourself in all this chaos, this Armageddon that hits you in a second? And how do you find your grounded parts of you that are actually coming in to support you through the event? And we can just talk
Mm.
about one event, and I assume there are many.
There are many. I would say that the chaotic phase is kind of inevitable, whether it lasts a few weeks or a few months or a few years. There is going to be that phase where you're going to be walking in the dark of the mystery of the void. It's just inevitable. And so when you're there in that phase, it's step by step, breath by breath, day by day, meal by meal. And
Mm.
you have to completely renounce knowing what's going to happen. You have to be okay walking in the mystery. And most of us don't learn that. And most of us are completely uncomfortable with that. And I was, absolutely. It's really in hindsight. And it's actually maybe towards the end of that phase that I started getting part of the wisdom of like, oh, actually, if I resist it, it's going to last longer and it's going to be worse. And so for me, and it's different for every single woman, but for me, I think that I entered every single phase in a way that had a lot of resistance and a lot of anger and a lot of like, why me, victimhood, like all these things that we try to work on to, you know, so-called heal. I started with all of these things, but by the end of that phase, I understood viscerally, like somatically, that the more I resisted, the longer it was going to be. And so maybe towards the last third or fourth of those phases, I would stop resisting. I would
Mm,
just be still, and I would just, and that's when, I started being in deep contact with the goddess. I would call on the goddess and I would say, okay, just guide me, show me the way. And so for me, not all women, but for me and a lot of women, to really call on our deep feminine spirituality or whatever spirituality is available to us and feels good to us. It might be Christianity, it might be, you know, everything is good as long as it's in service to the human. I would just call on the goddess and I would just say, guide me, tell me what's next. I accept. I accept. And so acceptance, self-compassion, um, and reaching out. And again, community, this idea of like, we can't do this alone. All
mhm.
these portals in a person's life, these rites of passage, we just cannot sustain them on our own, right? And this is also a reason why I want to create community around this topic because just if nothing else, if a woman doesn't even get coaching or support or therapy, if she only has one thing, and that is a community of women who are with her, who support her, who hear her out, who see her, witness her, and honor her. Just that, I feel, is enough to sustain many women through this transition and through this initiation.
Yeah, and I felt your support. And there's this like specific presence inside of you that speaks its own language. And I think you don't have to even explain it. And this is the beauty of someone experiencing and teaching through experience rather than someone who has the mind's knowledge and read that many books or heard it from somewhere. Here's where my hope lies, that we're able to differentiate between these two very distinct energies that we're trusting and then we're surrendering into for our process of descent. And you have it. And I'm not shy to say because you have it, not knowing. I didn't even know what you were going through. And I didn't, honestly, Lucy, I didn't even know your age. You were my age. If you asked me and my energy, I just felt very comfortable with you. And there are such energies that offer right away comfort. But it doesn't come without the experience. So this is just a celebration that thank God you exist. In another way of saying, thank God you exist. And people and women and people in general will actually feel this with you. I did feel this directly with you. But I wanted to ask, you mentioned the dying during your descent down. And I'm curious, what died in you and how many parts of you died?
That is such a beautiful question. I think in that moment, it was probably my identity as a younger woman, as a young woman.
Mm,
Up until 49, pretty much, I had so much energy, boundless energy. I could work, work, work. I could party. I could arrange for, dinners and play dates for my son and vacations and all that, and multitask all the time. And, sure, I would get tired. I went through a couple of burnouts in my life, but I had so much energy. And that is the energy of the maiden and the
mm,
mother phases. So we go through seasons, just like the earth goes through seasons. In our lives, we go through the four archetypal seasons. And so I was really leaving behind the season of summer. So the season of the mother, of the creatrix, of, being this person who creates projects and who can bring them forth with like so much strength and energy. And she's planted seeds and she's like, all this fruiting is happening in life. And I was moving into my inner autumn. And
mm,
so it's really this identity of the summer woman, of the woman who can do it all, who's productive, that died pretty much, I would say.
Wow. And with the death of your previous identity, how did you find your new identity right away? Did it take some time for you to simmer in it, to feel your way through it, who you are now?
It took so much time because I didn't have any education. I didn't have any guides, or I didn't know who actually could give me this kind of wisdom, right? Like my mother, we never had these discussions. My aunts either, I didn't have any women in my family, and I didn't grow up in a tribal setting where we had red tents and multiple generations of women could have gathered and talked about these things, and so that you actually grow up knowing about that, so that when you get to that age, it's not a surprise, right? So the way that we have a culture around menstruation and about that, even though it's really not perfect. And we have a certain type of culture around motherhood, again, not perfect, but there is no culture around menopause, none.
Hmm.
And so the way that we feel and the drop that we actually start feeling, because there's the physiological symptoms, but it's also a cultural syndrome, right? Because if you
Hmm.
look at other cultures, into Japan, for example, as women age, as people age, they become more and more precious because they're going towards elderhood. And so their value actually increases, whereas in our society, our value decreases because
Hmm.
we're losing our fertility. We're not as productive. We need more rest, right? And so all these things point towards this slow decay, this slow slipping into irrelevance, slipping into, your voice just doesn't matter as much as younger people's. And so getting back, I'm sorry, what was your question?
No, I love it. And it's okay
Okay.
if we take off. But you mentioned something. You're talking about the westernized culture,
Yeah,
westernized way of just almost like silently pushing away the worth of women and
yeah,
value of women because we're devalued in the westernized culture rather than Eastern cultures and European cultures too. I come from Europe. I highly respect my 92-year-old grandma, my mother who is 70. So it's almost like your wisdom is never going to be mine. And you will, I have so much respect for your life experience. You went through hell and back and two wars and who knows what else. This comes with the total crisis of the system and rebuilding yourself up again and again and again. This is the values that I think we're losing in humanity, especially in the westernized culture. So I just want to comment that you're absolutely right. I agree with that. And what I wanted to ask further, Luce, and let me see. I mean, do you have more time? Because we're
I
just
do.
in
Yeah, yeah.
our hour. Okay.
I'm
And
good
how
on
much
time.
long?
Yeah.
Okay.
15, 20 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Um, I love this conversation. And I actually love your softness in it. Softness in it. There's this, I can feel and sense your purpose to normalize, to talk about this, to also offer this experience as a gift to heal, as a gift not to isolate, not to close, and not to live in the closed-mindedness of such old traditional ways. And it almost sounds like there's this desire and purpose that you found to share such thing with the world and gift it back because it's very, very powerful.
Absolutely. And I really feel, there's this part of like normalizing this experience, um, really supporting women to not devalue themselves through this experience, and then to actually elevate this transformation and to really show all the gifts that it can have. And, that's like one layer. And then there's another layer, which I really feel called to, like, how do we elder? How do we become matriarchs? How do we become these stewards of humanity? That, that's how tribes always existed. Ancestral people always had councils of elders, councils of grandmothers, grandfathers, who would be the wisdom that would be underpinning what the leaders would decide for the tribes, right? And we have
Yeah.
completely lost that. We've lost our way in that sense. And one of the main I would say, practices that I've had over the last 4 years has actually been to walk the red path and to be part of a spiritual community that is rooted in ancestral ways. And because I'm going to be, I'm going to be 54 this year very soon, walking this path, for a number of years. Recently, I was asked actually by the grandmother of our spiritual community, would you like to become one of the grandmothers of this community and be part of a grandmother council? And of course, I absolutely said yes. And I am looking forward to, this rite of passage, because we have to go through a rite of passage in order to then access this space of being a grandmother. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I know that it's a deep responsibility. And it's something that I know that I will grow into. Like I don't feel yet like a grandmother. I know I will grow into it. And I know that to grow into it, there are many things that I still have to leave behind at this
Mhm.
point, right? So I had to leave behind this identity of the mother, of the summer woman. And then I'm going to have to leave behind things like, even more ego deaths and
Mhm.
even more resistances and even more ways that I'm not showing up authentically in the world, because this is what eldering requires, I think. And
Mhm.
it can be very, very scary for women to feel themselves aging, to feel
Mm.
themselves going into this direction of, I'm going, what is what is it even? Because I feel it, because I've practiced, I'm in this community, I can touch, I can feel how this can look like. But for many women, there is no model. There,
Yep.
you don't see on the cover of magazines, you know, Council of Grandmothers, and their decisions have been upheld by the government, and like, you don't see that. It's complete science fiction to many people, and for good reason, because look at the leadership that we have right now. It's the complete inversion of what it should be. And so and this is a big task, but I see so many women rising up to it. But I really see the leadership of women, and specifically the mature leadership of midlife women and older, to be an essential component to bringing forth the new earth. I really, really feel and believe that this is something that's needed.
It's very powerful. I'm getting like chills when I'm listening to you. And what I want to add to you is when you speak of this wisdom, this is not intellectual wisdom. It's not even emotional wisdom, emotional intelligence. You're talking deep wisdom of human qualities. And I think us women have this innate nurturing characteristic or compass, shall I call it, or just a song that follows us for the moment we're birthed. I think this is what we're supposed to do. We are supposed to kind of almost offer nurturing to each other because we lead with our heart regardless. We are sacrificial mothers by default. We have the birth right, not only the right, but also a creative force. We have the portal that opens up to create another being, another conscious being. That is so much power in one woman that is very much pushed aside. So when you speak of the elderly or the grandmother wisdom, I feel from you that comes to me, I almost feel there's a subtle presence that grounds into these qualities as almost like, the invisible hug, the safety
Mm,
that you feel without talking about it,
yes.
the deep transmissional work that speaks through your words in your book that others can feel later on in life. And this is how I understand it, not done by the mind. It's actually done by the higher levels of yourself, higher level of understandings, a much higher level of intellect that comes through you, gifted to humanity for the rest. And it's almost like work done for the generations ahead of the time. You're talking wisdom that translates and transmutes the pain into the collective offering as a gift. And it's so powerful and so beautiful. And it's very much needed. It almost feels like you're invited with your tribe and with your community to step forward and to lead, because sometimes you only need that example, and you only need one example. If you really think about it, you only need one example, one good one, to change your trajectory of life.
Absolutely. Whether we're children or adults, like there's always these stories for children who have had like a hard beginning in life. They had, you hear these stories, they always had one teacher
Mm.
or one neighbor or one family member that was that person for them. And it's true at every single age. And it's so true as we get older. And I'm never going to pretend that I'm going to be, the face of, the new matriarchs or anything like that. But if I can participate in this movement, if I can contribute to this movement, if, even half a dozen women, their lives are changed because they heard me speak, or I coached them, or they were in one of my circles, or I connected with them at a retreat, then that is why I'm here. That
Mm.
is my mission.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
fact that you went through, as a mother, as a woman who birthed another child, who had to give
Mhm.
up of her identity and completely sacrifice your life to give to another human being, and then went through another rebirth and again resurrected herself. It's like you're talking wisdom and wisdom and wisdom. And to give a permission to be an example means giving a permission to other women to find that value and to find that inner power in ourselves and not allow this to guide. Ah, Luz. I love it. And you're all fire. You see? It's wait. So now I have to ask, you mentioned your inner circle of woman is called red, walking on a red fire. Is that what you mentioned earlier?
The red tent.
Oh, is that why you're red? You're
Oh,
representing through
well,
red?
this is actually my favorite color, coral, and
Oh,
I love to wear, orange and warm colors. So yeah, so the project that I brought to the festival is called the Red Tent.
mm,
And red tents is actually an ancestral practice where women would come together, in whether it's a tent or a space. Usually it was outside in nature, and it was called red because it was all about sharing the blood mysteries, right? So whether it
ah.
was the menstruation mysteries, motherhood, menopause, and beyond, those red tents were the opportunities, were these moments and places and spaces where women of all generations could share about these things that bring women together. And this is also why there was like a lot of patriarchal laws and rules and violence against women assembling together in these spaces.
So do you feel our time is now?
Absolutely.
And where do you feel it when you say it?
I felt it all through my central channel, and it goes all the way down to my womb, actually.
Wow, I feel it in my throat. And as we take on these different roles and different obligations, and I'm talking big, deep, wise obligation to show up to the world with these qualities of us, to wholeheartedly support one another, holding hands as sisters, holding hands as another alike, and another alike as a human being, not AI who tells you your purpose in life. I'm only talking human touch, human hug, human eyes where you can see behind. I deeply believe, and I can sense it also in a collective too, regardless of the bad news and breaking news of trauma and everything dark, that we are rising and almost like birthing this layer of us that can sense the truth in another. And I love it. And when I can sense your truth because you're speaking out of your seed and core value of who you know you are, believe you are, and stand for, and it's your heart value, I know you will have my back. And to know that is very, very powerful. want to cry when I think about it. It's literally, it's like to know that someone has your back without saying anything. You can only feel this nowadays. And when you feel it, you stick with it because those are your people. Those are your people.
Absolutely. And humans are so good at feeling these things,
Yeah.
and that is the work I think that is the most powerful that we can do is this work of embodiment. And embodiment can mean so many things to so many people, but for
Yeah.
me, it's exactly what you just said is to not only embody, be able to feel all our parts and, rekindle, these exiled parts that we have inside of ourselves and heal our trauma, but it's actually to embody our values and how we show up in the world will be felt. And it's not about big speeches and big actions and a lot of money and
Yeah.
all these things can be helpful, but it's about like how people feel us. And this can be felt through screens, it can be felt in person, it can be felt through just listening to a voice and even
Yeah.
just looking at somebody's picture. This is felt, and humans are so good at this. And I think that that's why, probably for you as well, but certainly for myself, in my practice, I always start with the soma, always start with the body, with the sensations. And so many women come to me saying, like, I don't know if I can feel, I don't know what sensations are, I don't know if I can do this work. And I said, you have a body, you can do this work.
Yeah. Uh, many, many trillions of cells doing its own thing. So you can feel them. You can feel them. And it takes patience, love, compassion. And these are all qualities of self love.
Yeah,
And it's very patient, very slow. Actually, speaks to self. There's no more tender love than self love once you discover it. And it's a different kind of love. And once you discover that, out of which you open up to the world, it's a gift and it becomes a legacy. And I sense that it's slowly becoming your legacy to show up to the world with the whole heart and your values.
absolutely. And if this is what you're getting from me, then my job is done.
Yeah. Oh my God. Listen, an hour. It felt like 5 minutes. You see, we don't know where we're gonna end. How are you feeling?
Mm, really grounded, really, and
Yeah.
really grateful. I feel so grateful. Like you're such a nimble, agile, magical weaver of conversation. It's spectacular.
I love it. And I love how energy drops, measures your energy, measures my energy, takes both our blends and creates its own thing. I love it. And I never know where it's going to end, but I can tune into you. I can feel your energy and your openness. And as long as you have this little crack or window or door cracked open for me, I can enter and we hold hands. And this is what this space is for me. And I don't know how not to do it that way. It's almost like it's such an honor and pleasure. I feel richer for you, for everybody who stands in front and is willing to be raw, honest, and just self. Simply just like almost like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
I can't be anything different. And this is what I stand for. This is who I am. And this is who I'm going to show up. And I'm right there with you. And I freaking
Mm.
love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much.
much. I just love it. And I think I could have talked to you for a couple more hours. These are such a good, juicy questions. And I really, really celebrate and deeply, deeply thank you for showing up and speaking. We didn't touch on sensuality and sexuality, but maybe we can do that in a round two.
I'm all for round twos.
Okay. Liz, thank you. I send you so much love.
Mwah.
Okay. Ciao.